in the room, but and how it's produced. But perhaps you'd like to start with that.
Well, maybe I'll start with the first question that I remember, and is from on the Scotland issue. And I think, Scotland was the Scotland vote was a really interesting time because people really embraced talking about money. What was really sad from my personal perspective, NEF, positive money, was that the debate never really evolved into something meaningful, and it was kind of two bad suggestions up against each other, and people just arguing, well, I prefer that bad suggestion, and the other person say, well, I prefer that one, and it never evolved to think, well, if we're going to be if Scotland is going to be an independent country, what could it really do, or going out on its own? Now, the amazing thing about the Scottish referendum was that it mobilized people to care about their country and issues involving them more than has been the case for possibly this century, and despite the fact that all institutions, all newspapers, bar one, all political parties, bar the Greens and the SNP, everybody, all the institutions were telling people, vote no. Almost 50% of people still voted yes. And that was really, amazing to see, that a real grassroots, give people something to really think about and make a decision about, and people will get involved and care about it. And so at NEF, and me personally, we're still working very, very strongly to capture that energy, capture those almost 2 million people who voted for independence, who want a different future, not just around money, but around war, around social security, around energy, around nuclear. These are all the kind of narratives that were driving these near 2 million people. And so there's a radical independence conference going on at the end of November. Should be really interesting. We're going to be raising currency issues and all of that. So there's still a lot that can happen.
I just want to add to that also that in Scotland, I mean, that I think a lot of the vote was actually driven by the radical independence campaign, as much as anybody. They were the ones who were actually out on the street. They were the ones knocking on people's doors. They were the ones in working class communities actually talking about this. And one of their major planks on their platform was citizens' income. It actually, was very popular. It wasn't like, you had to, do this like massive shift change in people's heads in order to get them to support it. So there was that. Somebody mentioned pilot projects, which I didn't really address before. And yes, there have been several pilot projects. The one you mentioned in India, that will be published in November. And with just a 30% subsistence income as a basic income, there were amazing changes. I mean, the thing that Guy Standing talks a lot about, which I think is amazing, is that that girls, there's some index, all right, about how healthy you are and how big you are. Anyway, it's a nutritional index, all right, and it was like, girls were finally getting the kind of food they needed to grow properly. So the difference between boys and girls disappeared. It disappeared during this, all right? The other thing that people did with the money, and even though it was only a 30% subsistence, is that villages got together to give themselves, to build sanitation. They built, another village built a fish pond, which will carry on even after the project will finish. And there was one other thing I was going to say that which just flew out of my head. I'm really sorry about that. Anyway, I mean, but the point is that with the pilot projects, what the pilot projects really show is, first of all, that people don't stop working. Also, the other thing that it showed was that the people spend on alcohol and tobacco went down. All right, I mean, this is another thing is sometimes people throw at the basic income as, oh, well, if you give it to drunks and drug addicts, they'll just spend it on heroin and alcohol. And in fact, if when you look at sort of what causes addictions and the fact that it's often stress that causes addiction, that people are medicating themselves against, it is actually, it does actually make sense that their consumption of these things would actually go down. I'm still not getting to the thing that I was thinking about, but maybe it'll happen. Anyway, sorry. Yeah.
noble and what you just talked about, and I'll look forward to reading about it. But at the same time, if you like, the opposite to that was, I'm sure people have heard of Miss Wolfe, who's meant to be sitting at the CSA, the Lord Mayor of London. One of the reasons why she was delayed is because she was actually out in Africa setting up new central banks, giving huge loans out with the help of Jamie Dimon, who set up a 12.5 billion fund to a very small select amount of people. So now, while that's admirable, there is just not that time to grow, because that fund is at 50 billion to start off with. And that hegemony is going straight into Africa that's here, that is everywhere else. And I repeat, you are looking at a time issue.
Yeah, well, I mean, this is the thing, and, as David Graeber said recently in an interview with Russell Brand, that, the two things you can do straight away is you can do debt cancellation, and you can give people a basic income. I mean, it would not actually be that difficult to give everyone a basic income in this country. Everybody, most people have a national insurance number. You just put money into people's national insurance accounts. What? All right? That's not a big deal. I mean, I think that the thing is, what you're talking about is the kind of corruption that happens. And, I think that was another thing that came out with the Indian pilot studies, was that, if you get, that giving people money into their bank accounts actually is an anti-corruption measure. Everybody can see exactly how much they get. You know exactly where the money's going, all right? And, and say with these food programs, or the food supplement programs and everything else, they are highly corruptible. People are opening bags of their supplementary rice, and they're finding, half of it is stones at the end of the day. And the other thing that people were also able to spend more money on was more nutritious food. They were able to buy fruit and vegetables, and able actually to choose for themselves to eat better. So, I mean, I think the thing of a basic income, yes, paid, as Mihai was talking about, sort of paying foreign aid as a basic income, I think would be like a reparations project, all right, for colonialism and slavery. I mean, I really think that, there's a lot of different ways that this could really help things out, and it wouldn't actually be that difficult to do.
No.
So.
Less admin, less corruption as well, and you're up for it, you're at level.
I just need to check with Pete. Do we need to be out of here by 9, or it's 5 to 9? Okay. Okay. Yeah. Okay.
It's nearly 9 o'clock.
Yeah. I mean, I think maybe if
unless people, there's like anything really burning.
Yeah.